Welcome to Community Homeworks. I recognize a few faces, so thanks for coming back. My name is Sam. I am the Community Homeworks Education Coordinator here. So we're happy to put on this series, this Handy at Home Pink series for women in particular. So welcome. We are also streaming on YouTube, hence the camera, and welcome streamers if there's any. A few reminders, if you haven't already, please sign in the sign-in sheet. I see you all have handouts. Grab some snacks. The bathroom is up that ramp, and keep following it, and you'll see it on your left. And I think this is our last one in our Handy at Home Pink series. So we're very excited to close it out with our homeowners insurance class with Becky Laughlin.
Thank you. Am I all set? All right. Good evening. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. We get to learn about homeowners insurance. Are you excited about that? All right. Do you guys all own your own home currently? Okay, perfect. So we're kind of getting all acclimated with the tools and the community homeworks and everything they have to offer. So really cool for them to have me here tonight. So thank you. But my name, like she said, is Becky. I'm with Farmers Insurance. I've been doing insurance for 17 years now. Just to kind of give you a little bit of background, I started actually with Medicare supplements and health and life insurance, and went into doing property and casualty, which is home and auto, right? I worked for State Farm for probably 10 years. I went independent for a couple years and landed at Farmers Insurance. And I have my own office now in Mattawan. And I've been there 4 years. We'll be complete in January, and we'll be starting our 5th year. So pretty excited about that. But the reason we're all here tonight is to talk about homeowners insurance, right? Homeowners insurance, it's a crucial aspect of protecting your valuable asset, right? What do we all spend the most money on, right? We spend it on our home. It's the biggest investment most of us will ever have, right? And you want to protect that. So homeowners insurance is definitely set in place to protect your home and the amount of money and everything that you've put into it. It does provide financial security, right? So where would you go if something happened to your home? What would you do? Do you have the money sitting in the bank to go live somewhere else or go buy a new home? It's a little bit easier to replace a car than it is a home, right? But homeowners insurance, it provides against fire, theft, explosion. Believe it or not, if a tree falls on it or an airplane falls on it or a car crashes into it, we've had a few of those things, right? Animals. I just saw on TV the other night where a deer went into a person's home. I mean, kind of crazy, but if it did any damage, it's covered, right? Natural disasters, we've had a lot of those lately. A few things here that we've not expected. The tornado that went through Kalamazoo or Portage, hail, fire, wind, all kinds of stuff. So understanding the components is what makes you smart about your homeowner's insurance, right? Or feel that you're covered. Go through. So in your homeowner's policy, it all looks like a bunch of jargon, right? It's a whole bunch of words that we don't know. And if you look at this, it does the same thing, right? So with homeowners insurance, it's full of alphabet. It's like this last couple months have been nothing but alphabets for us, right? With the Medicare open enrollment, with your homeowners insurance. I mean, everything is alphabetized these days. So coverage A, when you're looking at your homeowner's declarations page, and I provided you with a copy, a sample copy, you'll see that coverage A is actually your home, okay? So when it says dwelling A, that is your home insurance, and that's what the value of your house is covered for, that particular dollar amount. Now, there's multiple types of coverage, right? So, not necessarily coverage, but losses, I guess you could say, or ways to cover the home would be like actual cash value or replacement, or where they just fix the losses and not necessarily, the losses might be at replacement, but the home's at actual cash value. So there's different ways you can set up your policy. The best is replacement cost, okay? How that works. So what we do is we take the square footage of your home, the year it was built. Is it 1 story versus 2 story? We're going to ask, does it have an attached garage or a detached garage? There's so many parts that go into your home that help spit out that price of the dwelling A coverage. Okay. So on that, everything works then off of that figure. Okay. So keep in mind too, the value of what a house might sell for is not necessarily what it will be replaced for. Okay. Right now the market's really high, right? And there's bidding wars and prices are going through the roof. People are paying more than what they maybe should in some cases for a home. The replacement cost is what it is for the materials, for the labor, and everything since COVID has kind of gone through the roof, right? So when we're talking about that coverage, it is replacement cost, okay? Other structures. So other structures, coverage B, that's any detached structure, whether it is a barn, a she shed, right? Since this is pink month, right? Tool shed, barns, swimming pools, those are usually covered at 10% of the dwelling with no extra premium charge. So if you're looking at that policy, you'll see an automatic 10%, or even in your own homeowner's policy, you'll see other structures 10%. So that 10% is based off that dwelling A coverage. Okay. Personal property, generally that's set between most companies will set it automatically between 55 or 75. And this is the fun part where we say, okay, take your house upside down and any detached structure that you might have and everything that falls to the ceiling, that's your personal property. So, people think automatically of their couch and furniture and bed, right? But think about your clothes, your shoes, your toothbrush, kids stuff, towels, pots and pans, dishes, all of that stuff. Anything used to care and maintain your home, that's what's covered. So yes, a lawnmower, your weed whacker, anything in your garage like that. Now, the caveat to that, right, would be if it has a motor, it's better covered elsewhere. So if you have a vintage vehicle or you have a dirt bike or you have a snowmobile or an ATV or a UTV, whatever the case might be, anything that has a motor is better covered elsewhere. So that means it should have its own policy. So if that barn burns or if your house burns and your car's inside of it or a Tractor could go either way, right? If it's used to care and maintain your property, it would be covered under personal property as long as you had enough coverage for your contents. Okay? Am I going too fast? Does anybody have any questions? No, riding lawnmower, as long as it's used to care and maintain your property, then yes, that's covered under personal property, or can be covered under personal property. So again, check your limits on your policies. Most companies set it at 55% or 75% of that dwelling A coverage. So like on the sample that I gave you, and I'll pull that up here in a second, the coverage A dwelling was at 276,000. Separate structures, 10% then is 27,600, right? And then personal property, this one's actually at 55%, so 207,000. I think that's right. It doesn't say, but 207,000 then is a percentage of that dwelling A coverage. For the personal property, it can be covered off premise or on premise. And off premise means if it's in your car, or if you're traveling. If you went to a concert or away for a weekend, or you went to anywhere in the world, 10% of your stuff is covered no matter what. Okay. So when you're in your car and somebody breaks in and steals your stuff, it's not covered under your auto insurance. It's covered under your homeowner's insurance. Okay. Questions on that? Other items that we don't think about that you can add to your homeowner's policy are things for inflated or increased amounts of money, like coin and collectibles and things like that, jewelry, computers, firearms, furs, anything like that. Those types of things should be like if you're a photographer, you're going to have a whole bunch of equipment. You might want a special rider for that, or an increased amount for those types of things. If you don't have it covered under your business, let's just assume you're not a business and you're just freelancing, right? You do it for fun or hobby. The jewelry, there's automatic amounts that you'll see that are listed on most homeowners policies. You'll see did I forget that page? I did. So it usually lists out like coverage for jewelry at like 2,500, or firearms 1,500 or 2,500, or you might have the option to increase it to 5,000 unless you want to schedule it or add it on separately. It is, and generally those limits are set for theft. So if somebody steals them, that's what those limits are set for. If you have a fire, depending on how your policy is written, not necessarily. Those limits then can be increased or whatever, because who's going to prove that you had it, right? Probably shouldn't have said that on camera, but all right. Also, what's covered in your policy is coverage D. So what happens if we have a tornado, or if a tree falls on your house, or if the electrical wires are ripped from the house? Those are the types of coverages where additional living expense or coverage D would come into place. That's where the insurance company is going to give you money to go live somewhere else, whether it's a hotel or apartment, or for how long it might be, right? So it can pay 12 months or 24 months. It depends on your policy and the limits that you've chosen. But it will pay for restaurants, meals. Like I said, it could pay for a hotel or an apartment, up to the limits that are in your policy. Mm-hmm. Yep. Liability, this is a fun one. Liability, this covers you whether it's on premise or off premise. This is where if someone comes on your property, invited or not, and let's say you rented some tools from the tool library and you're digging up a hole, or you're going to replace a pipe or electric, or who knows, maybe you're installing a flag. If you don't rope that off, or even if you do, if you have somebody that trespasses or comes on your property and falls in that hole and they break their leg, they can sue you. And that's where your liability comes into play. I know it's not fair, is it? But that's what your homeowners protects you for. Now, it can even go off premise. So is anybody here a golfer? I like to use this excuse or this explanation, or I've not been very good with my words today, so forgive me, but use this as an example. If you're out golfing and you hit the ball and you slice it, and you don't yell, hey, heads up, or four, or whatever they expect you to yell out there, right? And it hits somebody in the head, and now they have brain damage and have to have surgery or whatever. They can sue you for that. And your homeowner's liability will pay that, even though you weren't at home, right? Now, when it gets into libel and slander, you can add what's called personal injury onto your policy. In this day and age, it's becoming more prevalent. It's becoming more of a thing. Everybody gets offended easily, and somebody walks by your conversation, A and B are having a conversation, and C walks by and hears a word and gets offended, and now they got your names and numbers, and they're taking you to court because they are offended, right? Liability. Two ways you can get that covered. You can add that personal injury protection to your homeowners, which will extend the libel and slander, or you can add what's called a personal liability umbrella policy. We're not necessarily here to talk about that, but you can. Absolutely. So questions then on liability. All right. Medical payments. So for that person that fell in your hole and broke their leg, you can have medical payments that will cover them for their first aid. Okay, so whether it be the ambulance ride or the visit to the emergency room, usually $1,000 is included. I always like to bump people up to $5,000 because an ambulance ride anymore costs more than $1,000. Am I right? Even if it's only 5 miles down the road, it seems to be pretty expensive. So very important to have that medical payments on there. Again, even if you had a friend come over and slid down the stairs and broke her leg or whatever, if you didn't salt your driveway because winter's coming, right? And they slip and fall, medical payments. Okay. Property of others. You'll see that usually it's like $500. Sometimes it can be more depending on your policy and how it's written. But if, let's say you borrowed, I had a lady who was actually cooking at her son's house for Thanksgiving dinner, and she dropped something on his glass top stove. It broke, right? It cracked. So her homeowner's insurance actually, because she was using it, paid to fix or repair or replace that glass top stove. So if somebody gives you a chainsaw or TV and it gets damaged or broken while in your possession, your homeowner's policy could potentially cover that. Will it go up? It depends on your policy and how long you've been with the company, and it depends on the company, right? The longer you're with them, it kind of works like some insurance companies kind of work like your auto, where you get that accident free, right? So maybe your first claim is forgiven, your second claim might be rated, or tiered, depending on how long you've been with them. But yes, it can go up for a claim, of course, whether it's in your control or not. Unfortunately, homeowners, if anybody tells you their homeowner's policy or their auto policy or any kind of insurance is never going to go up, run out that door and scream, wrong. It just does, right? The cost of vehicles, the cost of building materials, the cost of labor, that increases, which means we have to pay more as insurance companies, right? So who do we pass that on to, right? I mean, we've got to collect enough to be able to pay it out. Okay. So kind of like what we just went through, it shows a little bit of a description. So on the policy, just to kind of show, you've got your policy number here. It'll show your effective dates. The effective dates are always, homeowners policies are always a year, right? It will have, if you have an email, it'll show a property address and it might have a mailing address. So you're going to just go through your policy and just double check. They usually put like the year of the house and what type of siding you might have, your roof. You want to make sure that's up to date, because if you have a new roof or you have updated your furnace and your air conditioning, those are things that you can get discounts for, right? Um, mhm.
I got a new roof and on my garage, they said you gotta do both, so I did both, and then they told me if you don't do this stuff, then
Some do, some don't. I can tell you it's not a huge discount if they do give a discount, but every little bit helps, right? So again, on this particular policy, this one is covered at 276,000, right? So they're going to cover that. Now, and then, like I said, your other structures, your personal property. Remember, again, personal property, I cannot stress that enough. We went and did a review, and this is how I got into insurance. We did a review with our insurance agent. And my husband and I at the time were both in the meeting. And when we left, we both left with the same information. Usually when two people go in, one got something and the other one got something, right? We actually left thinking that a 1927 Model T that he'd gotten from his grandfather's estate, we left thinking that was covered under our contents in our barn. We both left with that same information. 1 year to the date of our review, we had a barn fire. Guess what? That 1927 was not covered. They said, oh no, we would have never told you that. We would have handed you this brochure. I'm like, news to me. So now that particular insurance company made up for it in other ways, and there's things that your insurance agent can do to help you get everything you can out of your policy, right? Within reason. Huh? Sometimes they do, and it's unfortunate, and that's the one thing hard for me about being an insurance agent is when somebody comes to me and somebody's broke into their home, right? You are going to feel like you are the criminal. You're going to feel like you are put on the witness stand, but it's because of everybody else that's made a false claim, right? So now we have to ask for pictures. Do you have receipts? What kind of proof do you have that this stuff was stolen? And it's all because of somebody else made a bad claim, right? So if you have a good insurance agent, they'll just help you through it, answer any questions that you have. Most of the times with a claim, you have 1 year to write all of your stuff down on a homeowner's. It's good for Michigan, right? Because we have 4 seasons. So you don't know what you lost until you go to need it, right? So like when we had our barn fire, I'm going, oh my gosh, I don't even know what we had in there, right? Come spring, the rototiller. Oh my gosh, we lost our rototiller. We got to add that to the list. Snow shovels. Oh my gosh, I forgot about the snow shovel until you need a snow shovel, right? So it's good that they do give you a year. Some companies will give you 2 to just go through and remember everything. So my advice always is, we all have our phones. We all have had video cameras. I guess there's one right there, right? But go through the home, because when you lose something, when there's a fire, when somebody steals, it's devastating, right? You can't think clearly. You just can't. You feel like the victim, but then you feel like the criminal because of the insurance company. And, you can't remember everything that you had. So it's good to take a video because you can kind of go through or take pictures and you go, oh yeah, I forgot to write that on my list, right? It'll help you focus and think a little bit more clearly. That's true. Again, pictures, pictures of you next to it or someone in your family or whatever to show that you're in your home, something, anything helps. Yeah, so most of the time it's already automatic in there. They don't really ask anymore. They just kind of assume. Some companies do ask. Again, it just depends on the company and what they have. But yes, there are discounts for being non-smokers, for having a new roof, like I said, for new furnace and air conditioning, but it has to be both. Discounts for bundling, right? We all hear progressive talk about bundling. So the more policies you have, the bigger the discount usually. Progressive, again, has one of those commercials where used to have where they have the car towing the boat, towing the trailer with the quad or the ATV on it or whatever, and trying to pull it through the garage, right? So the more you have, the more discounts you can earn, right? You'll see on there too, a lot of them offered like a preferred payment plan if you pay it in full. A lot of times if you have a mortgage, right, and it's escrowed, everybody knows what that is, right? Where you're making your monthly mortgage payment and it includes your taxes and your taxes and your insurance. And so then your mortgage company has somebody that manages your escrow account. And when it's time, they pay it. So they go through and balance that every year. So, hi there, come on in. All right, good deal. So, a lot of times at the end of the year, you'll get a notification that says, hey, your escrow account was short, or, oh, hey, guess what? There's a refund. It's not always because of the insurance went up. Taxes go up too, right? A lot of times taxes go up higher than the insurance does, but lately it's been an influx on the insurance. So apologies, but we're all still trying to play catch up, right? Questions so far? We good? Oops, I went too far. Did I go? That's all right. Did I hit the button? The power button? I think there's only one more slide, right? Yeah, there we go. So yes, you can earn a claim-free discount. You can earn a good payer discount. A lot of companies are giving you discounts for having e-policies, right? Which means if you get it on the email or, everything, they want to text you or email you and go paperless, right? But yet we still mail you all kinds of stuff, don't we? There are some other coverages that you can add to your policy. Backup of sewer and drain. So backup of sewer and drain, if your septic or your sewer backs up into the house, that's a mess. I don't want to clean that up. I don't even want to have my kids, if I had kids, nieces and nephews, clean it up, right? You get sick. Let's hire a professional. So if it backs up, a lot of times you can add as little as 5,000, 10, 15, 20, 25. But it also depends on, do you have a basement? Is there a sump pump in the basement? Is that on battery backup? It does cost a little bit to have it, but it's so worth it. Okay. You can have it replace a broad coverage, I guess, if you will, or you can have it do specific appliances with some companies where it might cover like a furnace or hot water heater if the water backed up and got too far. It could replace those, or you can have it if you have personal property in a finished basement. You'd probably want to go a little bit more broad with that. Equipment breakdown. This is kind of becoming a very popular thing. Equipment breakdown is offered through a lot of companies. I know your policy, State Farm, has that. What that does is it covers anything built in. So furnace, hot water heater, air conditioning, your electrical panel. State Farm has it as an option. I don't know if your policy has it, but you can look for equipment breakdown or some type of breakdown of equipment. It should be worded similar. But it will repair or replace those items up to $100,000. So to kind of give you an example, my aunt had a furnace and it stopped working. She had the service guy out. It cost probably, I think it was $1,200 or $1,500 to repair it. She had equipment breakdown and it covered it. I had another customer whose air conditioning got struck by lightning. Well, lightning's covered by homeowners, right? So what happened was we replaced the air conditioner based off of the homeowners policy, right? Everything is always subject to your deductible. We replaced that, but when we replaced it, her furnace was so old, even though it was still working, her furnace was old, and that new air conditioning didn't work with the furnace. So equipment breakdown paid a little bit for it. Yep. There's also a policy called utility lines or what is it? Utility lines, underground. It covers anything going underground to the home. So if your electrical's underground, your water, gas, anything like that, underground going to the home. If your pipes break in the ground, or a lot of the older homes, they're not buried deep enough, so traffic over top of it eventually breaks. Tree root is not covered under a homeowner's policy, but on the utility lines coverage, it would cover the tree roots, right, up to usually $10,000. And the equipment breakdown and the utility line service, they usually have their own $500 deductible, so it negates your policy deductible because it's not being covered by the policy. It's being covered by those little optional coverages, and you can have it covered under that. Yeah, question? You want a copy of that? Oh. Did you have the equipment breakdown on the policy? Okay. Oh my goodness. Did you talk to your agent? Okay. Right. So normally when a pipe freezes or a pipe breaks and you have water in the house because of that, anything that gets damaged from that water that came from that broken pipe or the overflooding of the washer or anything like that, the hose comes out of the drain on your washer, right, and floods your. Anyways, usually that type of water is covered. If it just seeps in from the ground or comes in, that's not covered, and that's hard. If you live in a floodplain, then you've got to get flood insurance, right? And then potentially you'd have coverage. Again, it depends on what the company and what kind of coverage you had, and also your deductible. Maybe it's not that they denied the claim, maybe it's just wasn't enough to reach your deductible. Oh, was it? Oh gosh. Uh, Gotcha. So mold is another battle in itself. Most policies don't include coverage for mold or antifungal. There is some coverage. Yep, but not a lot. Hmm. Right. If it's because of water, they should have cleaned up the water and anything that got damaged by the water. The mold, correct. So that's more of a maintenance, right? But you didn't know. It really depends on the claims rep, your agent. If you have a good agent, they're going to try to do the best they can and say, hey, look, we had extenuating circumstances and we're going to try to tug on the heartstrings of a claims adjuster. It doesn't get us very far, but we try. Again, but it's in your policy, whatever it is. I mean, I might talk to my insurance agent and say, what about my water heater? Can that get replaced? Or how long ago was it? Usually claims within a year, right? As long as it starts. All I can do is say, read your policy. Try to find what was covered. I mean, ServPro sounds like they tried to go to bat for you. Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah. The mold part of it is hard, but the water damage from the broken pipe could have been taken care of. Now, did they pay ServPro anything? They didn't pay them anything? Sometimes they send them a check and you don't even know, but yeah, I'd be checking with my agent. Man, I'm sorry is all I can say about that one. Mm-hmm. Any questions on replacement cost or coverages, other coverages that you might have? Mm-hmm. So, yep, there are, depending on the value, right? A lot of times if it's over 5,000, they want you to have like an appraisal and they need them to be done every so many years just to make sure you have the correct coverage. But yes, they'll want to know like the what type, is it a mink? Is it a, I don't know, all the other types of furs that they're rabbit, whatever, I don't know. Or jewelry, they need to know, is it a wedding band? Does it have diamonds? Does it have rubies? And what's the carat weight? And, the 4 C's, right? Color, clarity, and quality. So, yes, they need to know all of those. The one thing about farmers that I like that I haven't seen on very many other policies is that we have limited matching. A lot of times limited matching, what that does is that comes in handy when you are or when you've been pelted with hail and it only comes from one direction, or straight line winds, it usually comes from one direction. And the homeowner's policy is going to pay for that damage, right, on that side of the house or that half of the roof. But what happens when you go to replace that siding or that roof and they either A, don't make it anymore, the colors don't match, You don't want to have, a patchwork home, right? So you get that limited matching where it will replace that other part of that roof or the rest of the siding, because we want to make you whole. We want to make it the way that it was. So that's something that Farmers offers that I haven't seen on a lot of other policies. Usually fence replacement, depending on your package, if you have a fence might be at actual cash value. They're not usually that expensive to replace, right? Depending on the type of fence. You can upgrade on a lot of policies to replacement cost. So actual cash value, how that works is it's whatever the value is at the time of the loss. Okay, kind of like a vehicle. Whatever the value of that is at the time of loss is what the value of that is, and that's what they're going to give you. Okay, so a lot of times when you have a claim, right, you're like, well, I have replacement cost. How come I'm only getting this much? Well, they're going to take your deductible out of it, and they're only going to give you so much. Now, when you go replace it, you bring that receipt back, and they're going to make you whole and give you that balance, right? So that's how replacement cost works when you have a claim, usually. And what's nice about a homeowner's claim, a lot of people look at that deductible, it might be 1,000, it might be 1%. Check your policies, because a lot of them now are automatically just giving you a 0.5% or a 1%, and that's based off of your coverage A. So if we go back to on this one, coverage A, 276,000. If you have a 1% deductible, your deductible is $2,760, right? So you have a claim and you're going, I didn't know my deductible was that high. Check your deductibles. Okay, if you have questions, I'll be happy to answer. A lot of times it used to be 500 was the deductible, but anymore, that's kind of far and few between. It's 1,000 or more. Some companies will have decreasing deductibles, right? So for every year you don't have a claim, Farmers gives you a deduction for not having a claim. Okay. What's nice about when you have a homeowner's claim that's different from an auto claim is that, if you hit a deer or if you get into an accident, you're going to have a deductible depending on your coverage, right? You might be 100 or 500. So you take your car to the body shop, your insurance company pays for the repairs, but when you go pick it up, if you've had a deductible, you've got to pay that deductible, right? With the homeowner's claim, they basically come out, assess the situation, and go, here's your check minus your deductible. Fix your house, right? So sometimes you may never have to come out of pocket of that deductible, depending on who does the work, right? If you do it, or if you have somebody else or a friend or family do it, you might get it done for less. But you don't have to pay us that deductible or pay your deductible out. Now, if it's a smaller claim, right? If you've had, a broken window or something happens, and you have $1,000 deductible, you might not file a claim, right? A lot of times with insurance companies, if you have, I always forget, is it 2 and 3 years or 3 and 2 years? They can cancel you. Some companies will cancel you after your first claim because they want to try to keep their rates down, and they're like, nope, we're not going to take a chance on you. Get out. But you can go get insurance other places. You just won't have that claim-free discount now, right? So keep in mind when you're filing homeowners claims that you want them to be worth a claim, right? You want it to count. Questions, concerns?
I don't see a people with my insurance, it says everything else showing what I'm covered for, particularly, and given details like, that it has your furnace and your central air together and all that.
So what you want to look for is this declarations page. If you see that at the top, that's going to be where all your coverages are at. Okay. That's going to tell you what your coverage A is. That's going to tell you what your coverage B is, what your personal property is, what they're going to cover for loss of use, right? What your liability is. Okay. Question?
Yeah, I guess I'm wondering, I understand when you get into a,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
but what other types of improvements should I do that?
I tell my customers I want to know anytime you do something, so I can note it in your file, right? So that if there's a claim, oh hey, they did just put their house burnt, but hey, they just told me 6 months ago they did new siding, they got new windows, so that's going to help the value of your home. That's going to help you get to this number. That's all going to help, right? Depending on what that is. The biggest thing, yes, if you did a big finish, yeah, absolutely. Because did you go from the what's that countertop, the laminate countertop, to granite or marble, right? We need to know that you now have granite or marble because that's going to cost more to replace. So if you had a kitchen fire and we didn't know that you upgraded your kitchen, now we got to go, okay, prove it, right? Uh-huh. Yeah.
So should I, if I'm looking at past policy, should I see that, so should I see changes?
You should. Absolutely. Most companies have inflation protection built in. Okay. Now, if they haven't, let's say you've been with your company for 10 years. Okay. You might want to have a review with them and have them do what's called a new estimated replacement cost analysis done. Have them go through that because, again, if you've added square footage, we definitely need to know because now your house is bigger. I had one of the girl in my office, she had a customer who had a cabin on a lake house, right? Well, he came in a couple years later and he's like, well, hey, that's not my house. And she's like, what do you mean? He's like, well, I got a 2-story house now and it's got this many square footage. And she's like, what? That's not insured, just this. You got to tell us. So anytime you add on or do any type of home improvement, yeah, you should let your insurance agent know and they'll do with it what they want. But again, I like to note. Mm. Mm. Did they ask you for a receipt or anything? Because if they had just done it, a lot of times, I was going to say, you could go to that company that just did the roof for you, right? And say, hey, you just did this. Get me, even if it would have burned, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, you definitely want to look at what you have for your home and make sure that all. Yeah, you didn't even have. Oh, my goodness. Mm. Yeah, sometimes you do. That's exactly right. Yeah, I understand. Sometimes, it again depends on your policy. So make sure you're looking for those things. Make sure if you don't understand that you ask your agent or go to an agent that's going to explain it to you, right? That's going to say, okay, make me a list or what do you have? Because I like to do a review every year. People get annoyed at my phone calls and they're like, not this year, Becky. I'm like, hey, if something happens, I need to know what you guys have to be able to protect you and help you, right? So don't always shut us out, right? We go through the policy again. Yep. Sometimes I do. Absolutely, I will. Yep, if my customer's done kitchen remodel or added on, yeah, I want to go see. Sure, why not? It's only, yeah, I can then say I laid eyes on it, right? A lot of times we don't have time to go visit everybody, but we do try, if we can have a picture, if you can send us a picture, if we can't come out, again, we can save it, and put it in your file for updates. So it's things like that. I mean, it's good to know. It's good to talk to your insurance agent. It really is, because if you don't talk to them, they can't help you, right? I want somebody that's going to be able to take care of me. I want somebody that's going to know me. I want somebody that's going to explain stuff to me. And, if I'm talking to them and I'm going through their policy, I want them to feel like, you know what, if I have a claim, she's going to be there for me and she's going to do the best she can. And if for some reason I can't, you're going to know I tried. Right? And that's the kind of agent that you want. You want to feel comfortable with your agent and, befriend them, right? I mean, they're not all scary. Some are, but make them do their job, right? Any other questions?
Yeah, everybody have sometimes here, okay, this is decorations. And, it's got like fuel oil, 10,000, I don't have to fuel oil.
Sometimes there's just things that are listed in policies that are automatically included. Like you'll see credit card or forgery, right? An automatic $1,000. You'll see silver 2,500. You'll see oil furnace, fuel furnace, whatever. Sometimes it's just listed in there. Some based on the age of the home. It's just a given. They should update it when they're doing their estimated replacement cost estimator. They should be asking, do you have forced air? Do you have, thermal heat? Do you have the in-floor heat? Do you have propane? Is it natural gas? They should be asking you all these questions. The biggest is square footage and, any upgrades that you've had on your house. And is it attached garage or detached garage? Because attached garage, it's a separate structure, but it's attached, right? So it's kind of going to come into both of those. Just remember, if you have a car or anything with a motor, it's better covered elsewhere. That's the biggest thing I can stress to you. But again, personal property, we all think, oh, our stuff isn't worth that much, right? Oh, I got that at a garage sale. Oh, I found that on sale. Well, you know what? If your house burned today, are you going to be able to go back to that same garage sale and say, hey, I bought this from you. Do you have another one I can buy at the same price? No. Your grandma gave you something, a furnace or a furniture, a couch or a rocking chair. Grandma only had one, right? You can't replace that. You got to go buy new. And when you go buy new, it's not always going to be on sale, right? So you want to look at, okay, if I had to go buy this, what would the retail price be? You want to look at that stuff. Clothes, oh my gosh, shoes, oh my gosh, everything, oh my gosh. It's ridiculous. So cheaper is not always better. Any other questions? No, not necessarily. You just kind of, generally on a homeowner's policy, it's an automatic percentage. It's anywhere from 55 to 75%. You can inflate that coverage. So like if you have a garage or a detached structure and you got stuff to maintain your property or tools and things like that in there, this number might not be enough. Like I said, when we had our barn fire, what was automatically in our policy, if my house would have caught on fire, I'd have been SOL, right? I wouldn't have had enough to cover what was in my barn and what was in my house, because my husband at the time liked tools, right? He had a lathe, he had a mill, he had all the saws, and he had tools. If he couldn't find a tool, tape measure, oh my gosh, we had 50 tape measures, because every time he'd misplace one, he'd go to the store and buy a new one, right? Yeah, exactly. So If you can't find it, go buy a new one, right? And then all of a sudden, hey, my barn burned and I had 50 of these. I found them all because I was cleaning just before the fire, right? But yeah, they will ask if you use your tools to derive an income that's not necessarily personal property. Now it becomes business, and that's better covered elsewhere, right? So it's definitely good to kind of take every now and then a little inventory. You know, a lot of times you can get from your insurance agent or online. There's a lot of things online. You can go and get like a home inventory checklist and just write stuff down, you know, and every now and then look at, okay, TVs, you know, 10 years ago, the TVs were like $1,500, $2,000 to replace. Now you can get one similar for half of that, right? So not generally do things go down in price, but because they're not new anymore, there's other things out there. Prices change is my point. So any other questions? Sure. Yeah. On an umbrella policy, I always think it's a benefit. Because people are so happy these days. And with the Michigan auto reform, if we can talk about auto insurance a minute, you know, people now can change their health insurance or the medical coverage on their auto insurance, right? So if somebody had Medicaid or if they had a job and they had coverage that coordinated and they chose on their auto policy to take that down, and now you get into an accident and you're at fault and now they have doctor bills they never would have had before because we always had the unlimited medical. Guess what? They can sue for economic hardship right now. So, you know, do you want your wages garnished till you're age 65? Do you want them to be able to take the equity in your home? Do you want them to be able to come after you for any savings or investment that you might have? No. An umbrella policy is always good. Plus, you get multi-policy discounts, right? Mm-hmm. Yep. It's usually a separate policy. Yep. But yeah, definitely. It's just like an umbrella, right? Your home and auto go underneath that. If you have motorcycles, if you have a UTV or an ATV that you take out on the trails, you should have liability on that. It should be noted on your umbrella policy. Anything that has liability, your umbrella policy can cover. Boat. Oh my gosh, how many people have been hurt in boating accidents? It is exactly like bundling. Yep. So the more you bundle, the more you save, right? Uh-huh. That's right. It's all about the savings, right? Plus, again, like I said, discounts. It's all about the discounts. It's better coverage. It's better coverage for you because that's what your insurance is for, right? We always think we want the cheapest insurance until we need it. And you don't know what you have until you need it, right? So it's important to go through it. And, you know, if anybody wants a review, I'd be more than happy to go through your policy. And if you have a great policy and I can't beat it, or if I see something in there, I'm going to say, maybe you want to add that. I can't necessarily help you or beat your rate, but here's your policy and this is what I would do. I do that a lot. People are like, what? Why are you doing this? What do I have to pay you? No, I just want you to be covered. And maybe in the future, you'd know somebody else that you could refer to me that I could help, right? So referrals are huge. And just because maybe we can't beat your price or get close to your price or give you better coverage than what you have now, doesn't mean at your next renewal we can't. You know, rates change with every company. It's always up and down and up and down and up and down. So one company might be good this year and not next year. Just like when we all go through our health insurance or our Medicare, right? This is Medicare open enrollment. So that's why I keep going back to it because I keep doing all these drug plans, you know. Well, this plan worked for you for 2 years, but this year it's not going to. It's time to change. So same with your home and auto. All right. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming tonight. I appreciate it. And I have cards. There's all kinds of stuff you can take and call me with any questions.
Thank you so much, Becky.
Thank you.
That was wonderful. Thank you again to Becky. I think we all learned a lot. Yeah. Round of applause. And thank you for joining us tonight. Just a quick reminder, we do have our schedule. Things are winding down for the year, but we would love to see you again for, let's see, next week we've got a lunch and learn, which is garbage disposal. That evening we also have heating systems. So if you have any questions on your furnace or even some weatherization, please join us for that class. But thanks again and have a good night. Get home safe.